Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Meryl Fatemi. As we get into this next segment here, we're going to take a look at the Eastern Conference playoff matchups, some of the more intriguing ones. With the, I use the word intriguing just because it's a little bit more interesting. One of the more looked at ones. One of the more anticipated playoff matchups. But we're gonna look at two specifically with the Pacers and the Bucks and the Knicks and the Pistons. Funny enough, those are the only two playoff series decided right now. I know, but um, these are two incredible playoff series in general with two teams that are both loaded on both sides. Some young, some experienced, some more gritty, some more scrappy. We're gonna look at all both teams on both in both rounds. All four teams are going to be looked at in this segment. But before I move any further, um, I'd like to ask that you like and follow the show for more GS. Please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net for your questions. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I see it. And it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But getting right back into it here. We're going to get straight into it. Pistons and Knicks, one of the most probably we've seen this coming for the last 2 weeks or so in this regular season. It's been on our radar. It felt like this collision course was coming between these two teams. The Knicks for the last 2 years, well, 3 years actually, since Jalen Brunson arrived in New York, going to the playoffs every year. For the last 2 years specifically, having the title of one of those gritty, scrappy teams you don't really want to go up against come playoff time. Just hearts of lions in a way. Just a team that you don't want to see because they can pretty much beat anybody. Hello, Anthony. How are you, man? But yeah, the Knicks, obviously, like I mentioned, having that title for the last couple of years. But this year specifically, with the additions of Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, the New York Knicks front office being very active in the offseason, really revamping and not revitalizing, but just rebuilding this team with a different identity in a way. Under Coach Thibodeau, they just seem like more of a finesse shooting kind of team than the scrappy build that they had before. But going up against a new younger squad similar to them 2 years ago with the Pistons, in with Jalen Durden, Cade Cunningham emerging as a top threat for this team, incredibly well coached under JB Bickerstaff, with players like Asser Thompson, with veterans like Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley. They're just an incredibly young team, a young core with veterans on the outside. Dennis Schroeder as well on this team. The Pistons have been one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, and it just felt like this collision course was really coming. I just want to read a quick quote that Cade Cunningham said in a recent interview with Shams. I want to be the best player in the world every day. I don't think there's too many players that you could argue above me. That's Cade Cunningham calling himself the best player in the world, saying he wants to be the best player in the world. And a player with that mentality, we've seen it time and time again. I'm gonna make the comparison. I want to make the comparison. It's what we've seen for years with players with this type of mentality, but players like Steph Curry, players like LeBron James, Anthony Edwards is a recent example. Jimmy Butler, names like this that don't really, Giannis Antetokounmpo, names like this that don't really shy away from the NBA, from the top stage, from the spotlight. These players continue to shine time and time again come playoff time, And this is the moment. This is Cade Cunningham's moment in a way. This is his moment to put his name in that conversation. Anthony, I just saw your comment. Did you talk already about the mock draft for the 2025 NFL draft? No, I haven't, Anthony. I'm sorry, man. This is the basketball podcast at the moment. But that'll be on another show. I apologize for that. But getting right back into it here. Yeah, the Pistons and the Knicks. Cade Cunningham versus the Knicks this season, averaging 30 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, and 8 assists on about 65% shooting. Cade reminds me of J Kidd. Yes, I 100% can see it. Jason Kidd was more of a, I feel like he was more of a shooter. He was a point guard. I feel like in today's day, Jason Kidd is more, he reminds me of a Tyrese Halliburton. We're going to get into that actually in this segment a little bit down the line. But yeah, I feel like Jason Kidd was just more of a assist kind of guy than a shooter. He was a shooter, but Cade in today's day and age with how important shooting has become. Not only twos, threes in general, everything, how important offense has become. I feel like Cade is just a better offensive player right now, or has more of a potential to be an offensive player. I don't know about right now. I apologize. That is a little bit of a blasphemous statement, sounding like Stephen A. Smith. But, yeah, Cade can be that guy. Cade can be that offensive threat that we've been he hasn't really gotten the opportunity. We've seen him in the regular season. I mentioned with how he's played against the Knicks this season. But we know the playoffs is where players really get their recognition, where they staple their names on the top players in the league list. We see it with Jimmy Butler time and time again, almost every year with his title playoff. Jimmy, this is Cade's moment. If Cade wants to be in that conversation, this is his moment. Also, the Detroit Pistons going from 14-68 to now 44-38 this season. Flat out easily the most improved team in the NBA, outside of maybe the Houston Rockets. Even then, the Houston Rockets were not 14-68 last year, in contention for the worst NBA team in NBA, one of the worst teams in general in NBA history. They were not in that they did not have that context. They were not in that category. But yeah, a lot of credit of this goes to this new coach with JB Bickerstaff. They did have, I can't remember the coach. They fired their coach last season after 1 year. The coach from Monty Williams, thank you. But they fired Monty Williams at the tail end of last season, hired JB Bickerstaff, and it's really just this Pistons team has just really hit the ground running with their young core, with Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Asher Thompson, Jaden Ivey. They have a squad of just young players, reminding me very much of the 2017 Boston Celtics with how young they were possibly can go on a deep playoff run the way that Celtics team did. But I'm just going to read another quick comment here. Anthony, you've been very active in this segment. It's too early for the Pistons to make the playoffs, in my opinion. They're currently in the playoffs right now, and it's with the 6th spot. They're going to be facing the New York Knicks. This is their time. This is the moment. The regular season is over. The playoffs are around, and this is where basketball hits its peak. This is the best time of the year as a basketball fan. But I talked about the Pistons for a good long while. Let's switch gears to the New York Knicks side of things. Obviously we know 0-8 versus the top 2 seeds in the East. They did beat the Nets on Sunday by winning 113-105. But the biggest question mark for this team, in my opinion, is Jalen Brunson and how he can reintegrate into this offense. We've seen since his injury, he's really kind of just been stagnant on the offensive end, really trying to find his footing. In a way, it felt like the offense started to figure a little bit of cohesion in a way with Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, even Josh Hart in a way. The offense just seemed to figure itself out, and we've seen it for a while. We've seen it time and time again with offenses like this that are very well balanced, that it's hard for the superstar to come back into that offense and find its role immediately. It kind of takes about 2 or 3 weeks to reestablish that chemistry again. And obviously, like I've mentioned before, when a basketball player gets injured, it's usually their shot that's the last thing to come back to them. They kind of get their dribble stays, their offensive ability to pass the ball, everything, their in-game being able to read offenses stay, but it's usually their shooting that's the last thing to come back to them. And this is what we're seeing right now with Jalen Brunson. The last detail I want to point out about this series, the Pistons hold a 3-1 record over the Knicks this season in the regular season. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Knicks hosting this playoff series, but I think the Pistons are one of those teams that, especially with their fan base not having a lot of success over the last 10 years, 20 years or so, they're going to be out. They're going to be on the road. They're going to be at home. Specifically at home, the Pistons, I just found out about this, the Pistons are not allowing ticket sales from outside the Detroit area for their home base at the Little Caesars Arena in Detroit. That is a little nugget of information. It's not a huge thing, but it's really interesting to see that they're holding this opportunity for the diehard fans that have really been waiting for this moment in Detroit, around the area in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, and I think they said parts of Pennsylvania, but just that little region up there in the north part of the United States, in the Detroit area. I was going to talk about the Pacers and the Bucks, but I've really drawn on this segment. We're going to take a short break. In my next segment, we're going to take a look at the Pacers and Bucks, preview that series, and then after that, we're going to switch gears to the Western Conference. I'm going to take a short break, and then we're going to take a look at that matchup in the Eastern Conference.